This was Atlanta around 2005-ish. My best friend was in town and she was able to get us a nice hotel room near bars with her points. We got back to the hotel room late, but before midnight, and we were intoxicated but not blackout drunk. We got ready for bed and in our jammies and fell right to sleep in the queen-size bed. She accidentally put down just one occupant on the reservation, and we didn't bother to update it upon check-in. Several hours later, I woke up blurry-eyed and saw a tall man in our room just standing there staring at us. In my stupor, I calmly asked, "What are you doing here?" My friend then woke up to the sound of my voice and asked what's going on. He seemed frozen like a deer in headlights. He told us he was hotel security and there had been a report of a disturbance, and he was here to ask us to quiet down. Confused, we told him we had been asleep for a few hours and he told us okay and have a good night. He left out the door and we went right back to sleep. The next morning we went down to talk to management because, as we discussed, we realized something very strange had happened. Management talked to my friend and then called someone more senior to talk to her. I was on the phone watching from across the room as I brought out the second person and they spoke with her. She became sheet white. They had no on-site security team and no one had called in a disturbance the night before. They immediately moved us to a different room and upgraded the rest of our stay. To this day, I wonder if that room was targeted because it was only supposed to have one woman in there at the time, and when the person saw the two of us, they panicked and decided not to move forward. I also wonder what would have happened if our reaction time was not tempered by alcohol and in a dreaming state. If we had screamed, would that have triggered something more sinister? This past Monday, my coworkers and I returned to our hotel from a day of work out in the field. Rebecca and I walked to our rooms, and as we stood outside of our rooms, I opened mine and saw someone in the bathroom. I said, "Hello?" And nobody answered. My first instinct was that it was the cleaning lady in there for some reason, and then I saw my bag with my clothes in her hand. I said to my coworker, "There's a woman in the room." Then I asked the woman, "What are you doing with my stuff?" It gets a little fuzzy here because I can't remember everything I said and what she said, but she kept mumbling about her key that still worked, how it still worked, and that's how she got in. I was in shock, and she obviously was very flustered having been caught mid-robbery. She dropped my bags and fumbled around with her purse and a whitened plastic bag. By this time, my coworker was behind me watching all the insanity unfold. This woman was screaming and walking towards the door, and I said, "What's in the bag?" thinking it was probably my stuff, and she said, No, it's just my things. It's just my things, I'll show you." And so she did. I looked, and I didn't see anything of mine, so since I'm obviously in shock at this time, I let her just leave. I went into my room, and it had been ransacked. I did a quick look around to see if anything had been taken. All of my electronics were still there. Then I went into the bathroom, saw my underwear, my bikini, and my clothes shoved into my own bags randomly. Even my passport was shoved in there. Then I looked on the counter and saw that she got into my medication. I'm not sure what was going through my head at the moment other than I wanted it back, so I ran out the door to go find her. I ran to the laundry room downstairs and out the side of the hotel, but I didn't see her. I realized I was never going to find her. So my coworker and I went down to the lobby to tell them what had happened, and then we called the police. When we went back up to my room to wait, I noticed that there was a metal bat on my bed, a little larger than one of those novelty wood bats that you can get at a baseball game, but there's also a flashlight on the end of it. She must have left it behind in a hurry. She also left a necklace that must have fallen out of her bag when she was scrambling with mine. I was mostly freaking out at this point because I thought she had gotten away with my medication that I needed. The police got there and took our statements and looked around the room as well. One thing that I noticed was that there were bits of drywall in the sink, and I pointed that out to the cops, but none of us really knew where it came from. We started looking at the door and the windows to see if she pried her way in somehow, but there was nothing. So we kind of just went with the idea that she had a spare key or something, even though the front desk was adamant that there was no way that could be. The officer that came up brought 2 more officers as backup because they thought the woman might still be in the vicinity. But after our statements were taken, there was nothing else that they could really do, so they left. I sat down to finally make some calls to tell people, and as I'm on the phone, I'm thinking about the drywall and the sink, and it still doesn't make sense to me. So I'm on the phone, looking at the drywall and the mirror on the wall right above it, and then it hit me. I got my coworker and asked her to help me pull off the mirror from the wall, and we took the mirror down, and there's a hole there just big enough for a desperate junkie to squeeze through. I asked Brian and Rebecca if I should call the cops again to let them know that I found this, and my boss said there's still 2 cops out in the parking lot. So I went down to tell him, and the female cop kind of rolled her eyes, but the young guy said, "Yeah, I'll come check it out." They both came up, looked at the hole, and found a pillow, blankets, cigarettes, clothes, and toothbrushes. This woman had been living behind the wall of my mirror for God knows how long. She had access to me in my room at all times. I know it might be hard to picture. There was a crawl space about 2 feet wide in between 2 rows of the rooms. One of the officers called the original officer to come back to take pictures of this. She explained to him what's going on, and all I overhear on the radio is, "No fucking way." He comes back and takes pictures and is just as mind blown as the rest of us. Obviously, we packed up and left immediately. What's even crazier is that she had probably been there a long time. The last time we stayed at this hotel, I would randomly smell cigarette smoke, and I assumed someone was smoking in their bathroom and it was just traveling through the vents. But nope, a junkie was smoking just on the other side of my mirror. She had access to other rooms too. The holes in the wall were from a renovation, and the hotel hadn't properly patched it and just covered it up with some mirrors. She could have been hanging out in other people's rooms when they were gone. I was working at a Holiday Inn in Omaha, Nebraska back in my college days. Normally, I was a bellman, but sometimes I would work the front desk. One day, an odd-looking guy comes up to the front desk. He was wearing clothes straight out of the 1970s, like a super creepy version of Dan from The Good Guys. Aviators, greasy hair, with a massively receding hairline and a mustache. He has a cane and walks with a pretty severe limp. He asked me where he can get paramedic patches. He says he was called into town on a special assignment to help out with paramedic duties, but they make him provide his own patches. This all seemed pretty damn odd to me, so I told him I didn't know where he could buy them, and he eventually left. Later, I got a call to a room to check out the hot water. There was a report that the hot water wasn't working. It was coming out cold. I went to the room, knocked on the door, and an old lady in a nightgown answered. I introduced myself, but she didn't respond. She just stood there motionless. Her mouth was agape the whole time, the way you'd imagine a lobotomized person to look. I saw a motionless pair of legs lying on the bed, but I didn't look around the corner to check it out. I went into the bathroom, turned on the water, and it was instantly hot. The old lady never said a word, and I told her that the hot water was working just fine, and I quickly left the room. Later, the creepy man from before arrives back up at the desk, complaining that he had called about the hot water not working in his room. Naturally, I connected the dots, and oh God, not this mindset started to set in. I followed him back to his room at an extremely slow pace. He was very dependent on his cane. When we got to the room, the old lady was standing there, still agape in her nightgown, not saying a word. This time, I could see that the pair of legs on the bed were attached to an old man, now sitting. The old man sat there motionless, also agape, and not saying a word, just looking at me. I explained to the creepy man that I'd already been there, and that the hot water was working just fine. The weird part was that he didn't care at all about the water. He got out a duffel bag. From the duffel bag, he pulled out a stuffed Bugs Bunny doll. He held it out at arm's length and offered it to me. I reached out for it, not knowing why, and he pulled it back in a mind don't touch it kind of manner. He held it out again, as if he were offering it to me. I reluctantly reached out to grab it, and once again he pulled it back. The old man and woman kept staring at us, not saying a word, but smiling with their mouths open and making laughing sounds. That's the best way I can describe it, the entire time this is all happening. He then took a Donald Duck doll out of his bag. He held it out to me. I didn't reach for it this time. He kept holding it out, so eventually I reached for it. He immediately pulled it away with the same "you can't have it" reaction. I backed out of the door and told him to have a good stay, and never saw them again.